$200 million. That's how much Mark Carney's Liberals just handed an obscure company tied to a Canadian rocket launch pad in the tiny town of Canso, Nova Scotia.
That's why I'm thrilled to announce that the Department of National Defence has signed a 10-year, $200 million agreement with Maritime Launch Services.
Now, the Liberals say this will help Canada compete with the U.S. and build a domestic aerospace advantage. Really? It's just a concrete slab in the middle of nowhere. We decided to look deeper into the company, and what we found raises serious questions about transparency, accountability, and how business gets done in Canada. We went to Canso to see for ourselves. So I am in the small town of Canso, Nova Scotia. We flew to Halifax and then drove 3 hours here, and we came because of a picture of a port, not a seaport, but of a proposed spaceport being built in tiny Canso, Nova Scotia. And this spaceport recently got a $200 million contract from Canada's Department of Defence in the form of a 10-year lease. Canada's military is spending $200 million leasing this spaceport. But there is no spaceport. It's just a slab of concrete on a bit of a field of gravel. There is no spaceport, but there is a $200 million lease. Over 10 years, that's $20 million a year, works out to $54,000 a day for an empty plot of land for the company, Maritime Launch Services, that they actually rent from the province for less than $15,000 a year. It's the craziest thing I've seen, a $200 million military lease for a spaceport that doesn't have anything on it but some concrete slab. We had to come out to investigate. What I found in Canso was a town appalled and opposed to this rocket industry. Everywhere were signs from people who do not want this spaceport, whether it's real or fake.
And we live in the middle of, we're a small community in rural Nova Scotia. So no one's listening to us, and they're not,
Well, we're listening. This rocket launch pad company was a penny stock. It was worth next to nothing until the $200 million government grant came in. Then the price shot up from just a few cents a share to nearly $1, and the insiders made out like bandits. There were so many strange things, including that the lease was backdated a year. So they had to give $20 million to this company for a year of leasing the land that they weren't even there.
According to the Department of Natural Resources, so we looked at that document, it's $13,500 to lease annually. So, what a great deal. So this is provincial land, right? And they're leasing it for $13,500, and then they're leasing it back to the federal government for $20 million a year. So there's something wrong with that.
Well, that's the thing, is that this company was pretty sketchy. On paper was losing an enormous amount of money. Its share price was almost worthless. And then suddenly, the federal Department of Defense announces a $200 million lease for what is an empty pad. And here's the crazy thing, and I've never heard this before in my life. It's a 10-year lease, $20 million a year. That works out to, I did the math, $54,000 a day for this empty pad. But they backdated it by a year. So the federal government, the Department of Defense, paid for a year's lease, $20 million retroactively, that they didn't use it. So this year alone, this company, this sketchy company, will get $35 million. The backdated lease plus this year's lease, $35 million. It's right there in the lease. $35 million for doing nothing. And like you just explained, they're actually only paying $13,000 a year for the land. That, I think that's a form of money laundering, because no one pays historically for a lease they didn't use unless they're just trying to shove money to some friends.
There has to be someone who can look at I'm no financial expert, but
I looked at the stock market, because this is actually a publicly traded company over the counter. And the stock went from like 2 or 3 cents. It skyrocketed to 60 plus cents. So the people who had their stock and converted it to stock at 5 cents, they multiplied their money by 10. Who are these people who got a sweetheart deal, a backdated lease, a $35 million bonus from this government? I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of a backdated lease?
Manipulative characters.
Yeah.
They really are. And they've done a lot of damage in this community already.
I don't believe they're actually ever going to get a real spaceport here. I don't think it makes sense.
That's not the game. The game is to, I mean, once the gravy train is, they'll drag it on as long as they can.
And then
the money's going in. That's what I believe.
And then this story is gaining attention because of independent journalism. It was a local citizen journalist that blew the whistle on it. We went out there to talk to her to see what it was really like at Canada's so-called spaceport. Yeah, Elon Musk is safe for now.
And it's very close to our community.
2.8 kilometers to your home, you were telling me.
2.8 kilometers to my home.
And there's closer to even some others.
Yeah, well, basically, if you look at it as a U shape, where the open part of the U is the ocean. Okay, so you basically have three communities. We call them collectively Canso. There's Canso, there's Hazel Hill, and there's Little Dover. And they sort of go around the three sides of the U. So, yeah. And we have about 1,100 people within 5.5 kilometers of this. And when they first started this, they talked about this Ukrainian rocket, which is a 127-foot tall, untested Ukrainian rocket that they were going to launch within 3 kilometers of our community. So naturally, yeah, we were concerned. Sort of read, the sort of stock, the same email they give to everybody, right?
I understand that
they've been informed.
Yeah, well, maybe they're in on it. Let me ask you, the Premier of Nova Scotia, former Premier, Stephen McNeil, gave a glowing endorsement of this when he was Premier, and surprise, surprise, he's on their advisory board now.
Yeah, well, you have to wonder. Savannah Laporte, they signed a deal with the Ukrainians in 2017 to cooperate in space, despite all of this dirty, the corruption in the Ukrainian Space Agency, and Savannah Laporte is on the team, right? I don't know. I can't outright say it's corruption. I don't know, but it needs. I wrote the Auditor General yesterday, I think, and said, can you please, Karen Hogan, can you please look into this, because there's something terribly wrong with this.
Yeah. Independent journalism is why stories like this get examined. We rely on viewers so we can keep holding governments accountable and asking where our tax dollars are going.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm so glad that you have taken a public stand. And I'm glad the story's going viral because of those photos. Hopefully that we can add to some of this discussion. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about? Because there's so much information about this. Is there a moment? Is there a milestone or an event coming up that that we should be looking?
I want the event to be. I want them to pull the plug on this ridiculous project, and I want it to be investigated. Yeah. So we'll keep doing what we're doing, and we'll keep digging, but this needs to be looked at because it's wrong on every level. It's wrong. Yep.
If you can help us crowdfund our journalism, please do. We don't take any government money, and it shows. Click on the QR code or go to rebelfieldreports.com. It's so important that we share this story so people know about this $200 million scam. I think we'll probably go back to Canso, Nova Scotia to continue watching this story and to see if anything becomes of this concrete slab in the middle of nowhere. Our role is to keep viewers informed and hold the Liberal government accountable. Thanks very much for watching. I promise we'll keep following this story and any other questionable spending decisions coming out of Mark Carney's Ottawa. Our job is to keep you informed and to hold power to account. Thanks for watching.